Coming up today, developing intuition, NLP. You've probably heard me talking about that quite a bit. And frankly, an incredible podcast about dreams. And if you're someone who used to be a bit like me, and I used to say, oh, come on, mate, dreams, this is going to blow your mind. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Welcome back, and thank you for coming back to Zestology again. This is an extraordinary episode I recorded with an old friend. I've spoken at a few festivals and conferences and summits this year, including Verve Festival a couple of months ago. It was in September, back when the weather was a bit nicer than it is now, and bumped into an old friend, someone who I've known for a long time, but I haven't seen for a long time, Debs, who was speaking in the what was it called? The speech tent, I guess, or the talks tent, after me. And Debs has been coaching and mentoring and working with people for a long time. In fact, she's been studying NLP for over 30 years and now uses that and all sorts of other disciplines with her clients, some of which are a lot more out there than what I use. But I just love this conversation so much. Sometimes you record a podcast, and I'm going to be honest, sometimes I'm looking at the clock a little bit and thinking, oh, I've got a lot of other stuff to do. This, I just got lost in the conversation. She works with midlife, creative, curious women. And honestly, this is an awesome chat. Today we talk about developing intuition, NLP, my experience with NLP and hers, and the law of requisite variety, one of my favorite techniques, a tribal approach to parenting, how to work with your dreams, the crazy thing that happened when Debs changed her whole life after a dream. And you won't believe how much it changed. She dreamt about, I think it was, she needed to learn to tango, and everything changed after that. And there's loads more as well. Here is Debs on Zestology. Debs, how are you?
Hello, Tony. I'm really, really well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. I'm so pleased we've reconnected because we've known each other a long time, haven't we? And then we were both working at this or presenting at this Verve event recently and got back in touch, basically, bumped into each other and had such a lovely chat. We've known each other well over a decade, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Life comes in spirals, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And you are, when did you first start studying NLP?
33 years ago, I would say, in London with Joseph McDermott.
Wow, really?
Yes, and he blew me away. I remember he just sat on the stool and presented to a group of us, and because he was so himself, he mesmerized me. And yeah, that's when I started NLP. That's
fantastic. And do you still, because I want to get onto what you're doing now, but I'm really interested to know what sort of level of training did you go to with NLP? How did you use it? Do you still use it? I've been thinking a lot about NLP recently, and I'm fascinated to know sort of what level you went to and how you use it now.
I did the basic training. I never went to masters. I got diverted into other things. I was running a big learning and development department at the time, and I had to make decisions that took me in another direction in that sense. But NLP appealed to me because of its lack of subjectiveness, coming at people without labels, clear physical cues. You know, I'm a tantrika, I'm a yoga teacher. So the body speaks, right?
Yeah.
And I have never not used NLP. And as you know, you and I both know, I found it a wonderful tool for helping to connect with my child, even at very early ages, and my partner.
That's brilliant. And I think, it's really interesting because NLP, millions of people use NLP all around the world, but some people don't like it and feel quite threatened by it. And actually, I think NLP is exactly what you just said. For example, there's a technique known as the law of requisite variety, which is if you're doing something that's not working, try something else. And I think that applies to NLP as well, because NLP isn't the catch-all solution for everybody. Some people are going to find something else that's more interesting and work for them better. And that's all part of NLP, which is great.
Yeah. Yes, it's become part of a sort of a cake of things that I like to draw on.
Yeah. So what else is in the cake?
What else is in the cake? Well, 30 years, I suppose, study of human and personal development and business development, which go very much together, I think. Alchemy, shamanism.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say psychic talents, because we've all got them. So really developing a powerful intuition. Yoga, oddly enough, informs me a lot, because you can connect with people very much around how their body is moving, what it's saying to you. And a lot of information, as you know, passes between us, which hasn't got anything to do with language at all, spoken language. And I have found through deep study of some of the yogic philosophies and science that looking at how that works and how that links to our psychology and our emotional lives is a really big help and key in clearing or overcoming or overwriting. So I don't think we ever get rid of anything. I think that's a bit of a fallacy. My belief is that we expand. So I would, once upon a time, I might have said I'm also a healer because I'm a Reiki master and I do transference healing. But I no longer use the word healing because I think it brings with it an expectation that something's going to get fixed and never hurt you again.
Right.
Or you're never going to feel it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want as humans, in a sense, is all the good stuff, none of the icky stuff.
Yeah.
What I've come to realize in my 67th year, so I'm still hanging on here in the human race, is the more we can create, we have two things in this world that I believe we don't have when we're disembodied. Time, the construct of time, and the construct of a particular space. We have the physical space that our body occupies. We have mental space. We have emotional space. And when how we apply those two things is really, in a sense, what directs our life force. What you choose to do with your time and your space becomes very important. Now, if your space is limited, and I don't necessarily mean your physical space, but I mean your thinking space, your beliefs don't change, you stay on a little train track, nothing else can grow.
Right.
If you can create expansion around those, and let's face it, thought forms are just that. It's a form, it's a frequency. It's not a real thing. You can't touch a thought. You can't say that thought. You might say a fact is provable, but you can't say my thought is real. The fact that we thought it kind of kids us to think that it's real. So if we can make space around even the way we think, it's like everything else pops up a level and fits into a more comfortable place where we're not trying to fight it. We're meta to it.
And so there's a few different things around space. Firstly, space is harder than ever because we've just got information overload all the time, haven't we? And I just went off to play paddle tennis for a couple of hours before recording this interview, and I forgot my phone. I didn't know what to do with myself after. On the way home, I had like a half-hour walk back from the paddle courts. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to have to think. So we've got less time we've got less sort of brain space really than ever, haven't we?
We have, and we don't. There's a funny shift here. We don't actually like it at one level. The body, the physical body, curiously loves stasis, as I'm sure you and lots of people know. It likes, I'll just sit here then. I'll just sit here.
Yeah.
Because effort requires energy and risk. And so when we have things that are likely to distract us, we quickly build up these little walls and boxes and places to go that keep us from expanding.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. If, you ask people to sit still and do nothing for 5 minutes these days, that will make people feel very uncomfortable. Why? I can't speak for anybody personally, but why should we feel uncomfortable when we're sitting and doing nothing? It's a big question.
Yeah. So you work with, do you call them midlife women?
Midlife women, yeah.
Midlife women. And do you think as we get older, as we all get older, it's harder to keep that open mind?
I don't want to say that's true, because that would be me adding my energy to a limiting thought.
Yeah, a limiting belief, another NLP concept.
Yeah. I don't need to. What I want to say is midlife presents a very powerful opportunity to examine where you are. And let's not call it limited or unlimited. It's almost like where you are, and is what you're doing and who you're being, which is more important really, helping you to grow. And one of the things midlife women often say to me is, I don't have time and I don't have support. I'm too busy and I'm doing it all myself. So they're clear indications that they're running stories and programs about who they are and how they have to behave in order to get something.
Yeah. But I certainly think, I remember when I was a student and I went into the bank on my campus and I said, I'm going to move my bank because you've got third world debt and Barclays hasn't. So it's Lloyd's to Barclays. And they really took offence on the campus. And they said, you won't think like that when you're our age. And they were sort of, 40 something. And I said, I will. And I do. So I'm very glad that my political beliefs haven't changed. My sort of principles haven't changed. It certainly, they tend to say that politically you tend to drift to the right as you get older. And I certainly see in some of my sort of mum's generation, perhaps not politically, but people do tend to be a little bit more conservative. You're not, obviously, you're very open-minded, but I do think it can be a tendency, perhaps in my generation as well, to, well, I know what I like now, so I'll stick with that. And actually, that's missing out on the chance to reinvent. And as you said, you use that word risk. That's where the sort of excitement in life comes in, but you've got to keep taking them, haven't you?
You do. I believe that if we just take a real big step back, what's our universe up to? It's growing, it's expanding. Yeah. And, at a subatomic and atomic level, that's us too. And there's a force that wants us to follow that person that's a little bit different, of course. Richard Branson lay in his hammock and thought, how can I take my family to the moon? I've never had that thought. And I believe that risk is seen as, by its nature, to be dangerous. And I think that's another mindset to challenge. Is risk dangerous? There's recklessness, and that's another thing. And there's risk. These are good distinctions. And coming down to two things. One, you said about going to the bank.
Yeah. And
how we don't change. I think examining your values, and I do an exercise, a values exercise, and I've done it for years with groups of people, with individuals, fairly regularly, is massively important. It's good fun to do with your partner. Well, maybe fun isn't the right word.
Yeah.
A group of people that you're working with. Have a look and see what you're prepared to die for, almost. That's your compass. That's your compass. And I think very often when you talk about people drifting to the right, the need for greater security. I want to be a bit bold about this. I think most people are trying to hide the fact that we're inevitably marching towards the end of our lives.
Yeah.
And I think the earlier we embrace the fact that this is a short, sweet marathon, perhaps we can divest ourselves of some of the need for perfect security. There isn't any. People are losing homes, pensions, loved ones regularly. And that is not for me to be morbid or to say, oh, it's going to happen to you. I'm just saying, get true to yourself like you did. Find out what your values really are, and then check in fairly regularly, once a year. New Year's a good time for doing that. Yeah. I do that. And ask yourself, am I living true to those values? What were the dreams I had when I was 18? And have I birthed them yet?
Yeah. Interrupting this podcast for one moment to talk about something very delicate, because today's podcast partner is Magnesium Breakthrough. And if you don't want to accidentally take a laxative, there's no real delicate way of saying this. If you don't want to have the worst day of your life, you need to listen to the next minute or so of this. Because if you're currently taking a magnesium supplement, chances are you're flushing it down the loo or the toilet. Whether you're in America or the US, we call it loo here in Britain. I mean that literally, because the most common type of magnesium is actually used as a laxative. So if you're taking it, you're literally pooping it. I told you there's no delicate way to say this. And that is why taking a decent magnesium supplement which covers all the bases is so important. Magnesium Breakthrough has 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually absorb. And it is just so important to get the right forms of magnesium. I'm recording this here on a work day in my office in West London. And I'll tell you, it's a busy day. I'm sort of stressed. I'm type A as it is. I'm burning a lot of magnesium. I do need a good magnesium supplement, which is why I love Magnesium Breakthrough. And you've heard me talking about it a lot on this podcast. So you can go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology. Enter the code Zestology10 for 10% off any order. And I've got some great news for you, because if you're in the UK, you can use the code Zestology10 on the Bioptimizers UK site, which is bioptimizers.co.uk, and get 10% off all their products. So it's Zestology10 for 10% off any order. Make sure your magnesium isn't going straight down the toilet. Get a decent one. I told you it was a delicate chat we needed to have. Now, back to the show. So how do people find you? And what's changed since we first met in terms of your work and how you work with clients? I mean, where do people find you? Is it in person? Is it online? I'm fascinated to know. Yeah.
I mean, I love to go and give talks. It makes me weepily happy.
Yeah.
When women come up to me, I did one this morning, and say, oh my God, I'm not going crazy, or I didn't know that about myself. And now, I can talk to my husband about what's happening. It's not a break in our relationship. So yes, I do talks. I have my website, and I mentor midlife women across the globe, like you and I are talking now, with a combination of things. I think my secret sauce is I have my toolkit, but I also work in their energy field remotely, because it's a quantum thing. Right. So I know that an intelligence that's greater than my little one that's contained in this body is also helping to, let's just say, realign and re-energize the subtle invisible systems. And it was so you asked a question about what changed. Well, the truth is, Tony, a bit of a mystery story. Isn't the first time this has happened to me, but I had a dream.
Oh wow!
Really
you changed your life because of a dream.
Twice.
Wow.
3 times now.
No way.
First dream was you have to go and dance tango. That was a life changer. Second one was you're going to be a voice artist. That's when I met you.
Yeah.
And the third one. So in my sleep, I saw 4 little parcels all wrapped up in beautiful paper, emerald, sapphire, gold, and ruby. And my voice inside my head went, okay, you've got skills that are physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. You must bundle them up and take them to midlife women. It was in 2014. And I fell out of bed, and I did what most people do in the morning, out in my underwear, circling around, looking for the morning knickers. Okay. How does that, because to me it's obvious now how it fits in, but then it was like, what's tantra got to do with emotions? And as I stood there, and you know how it is, you ask the question, I was like, and there's some astrology in here. It's a big astrological event that happens to us in our 40s and 50s. like, oh my gosh, no wonder women are struggling. This is like throwing petrol onto a fire that nobody even knows is burning. So I had enough. I was like, got it. So I ran downstairs. I made a little Facebook event. I booked an event space, and I just did a little retreat called Menopause Magic. I was like, what are you doing, Deb? I'm like, who told you you could go do this?
Yeah.
But it's like I say, it's not about me. It's about something about me that knows that it's ready to do something else. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot of, I mean, it's really interesting you talk about dreams, because I think a lot of people who listen to my podcast are quite into the sort of biohacking, but they might be more into the sciencey side, and they're like, oh, dreams, whatever. And that's certainly how I used to be. And then a few years of therapy sorted that out, because every time I went to my therapist, I'd talk about dreams, and that was the subject of the conversation. It was brilliant, you know. But you're talking quite a bit about intuition as well, aren't you? And because dreams are probably part of that. They help you tap into your intuition and your right brain. And there's quite a lot of intuition, it seems, in what you do then.
Yes, I'd like to say it's grounded for anyone watching. You know, I'm a quantum physicist. I'm a quantum physics study buddy with a quantum physics theorist.
Wow.
So I keep my finger on the pulse, because I'm actually a very practical woman, and it's taken me years to come to terms with the fact that these invisible gifts, as you say, are as much a part of us than, you know, the way that we, I don't know, make a cake.
Yeah.
Dreams, there are tribes that say that those who lose touch with their dreams lose touch with their soul, lose touch with humanity.
Really?
Because I see dreams in three distinct categories, but essentially they're an aspect of myself communicating with the outside part of myself and saying, hey, this is some information you haven't been able to see in the sunlight. It's like the lunar part of us, that part of us that's actually working all the time through the body systems to help our senses assimilate information. And we cut out so much, don't we? Cut out so much information. So my dreams have played a very important role in my life since midlife.
And then what about intuition? I'm really fascinated by intuition, because and I think it may be tied into what you're saying, I'm very left-brained, and I like to cogitate over a decision for a long time and make lists. And then I've been listening to Rick Rubin a lot recently. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts with him, famous music producer, who's basically worked with every famous hip hop artist, and then lots of the big rock bands as well, Metallica, I think the Rolling Stones, certainly the Strokes. I mean, all sorts of really big artists. Bob Dylan, I think, as well. And he just talks about how he just trusts his intuition, and he just knows when something's right, and he trusts it, even if he thinks that no one's going to like it. His intuition tells him it's right, so he does it. And that's so different from how I approach the creative process, that I've been trying to embrace that a little bit more. And I'm fascinated to know if that's, you know, sort of what you think about intuition, actually.
Well, I certainly have a bit of a take on it. I mean, you're very creative. You're clearly tapped into your intuition in lots of ways. And the fact you want to make lists probably doesn't change. It probably just confirms what you felt in the first place, I'm guessing. That's my intuition, is you'll probably come like that to it. Then you'll make the list and you go, yeah, I was right in the first place.
Yeah.
I think something to say about intuition off the bat is it isn't really about right or wrong. Only the cognitive brain wants to make a decision about right or wrong. So we have to enter into the realms of, it's not right or wrong, but is it right for me now?
Right.
And therefore, we have to accept a level of risk, because what we want as humans is to say, it's perfectly safe, I'm making the right choice. No, you're not. You're not making the wrong choice either. That's a really important thing. And obviously, risk assessment aside, I mean, obviously, if you're going to drop $500,000 into a roulette. There's a risk to assess there. But, so going back to how it feels to me, it is a felt sense. It's calm. It's peaceful. It's undisturbed, and it's undisturbable. So when I've had these dreams, and like I said, I've referred to 3, they have been at times when what I did subsequently was so different. I mean, the first dream, the tango dream, ended my marriage. It was like cataclysmic.
Wow.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened then and what went on around following that instruction.
Wow.
I ended up doing crazy stuff. But everybody else thought it was crazy stuff because it wasn't normalized. It wasn't normal for a woman in my situation to do what I was doing.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a point when I had that feeling that it wasn't just calm and easy. It's like, yeah, that's what I got to do. And I didn't have to rush around trying to prove it or justify it. I think that's another important distinction is if you feel you've got to justify something, you're probably still in your left brain, trying to convince yourself. When you hit that point where you're like, no, like children, they just know.
Yeah.
Because their equipment hasn't been dumbed down. So, yeah, it's just like a breath and it's a relief. That's one of the things that comes with intuition. You go, yeah, that's it. And then your brain goes in and goes, do you realize what that means? And you're like, oh, crap. Yes, so it does.
Because NLP actually really suits left-brained, logical people, doesn't it? We it's brilliant. Like, I mean, that's probably why I was attracted to it 18 years ago. Oh, brilliant! I can give lots of sort of very computer-type names to things and neatly package things up and follow a process and come up with the solution. And there are right-brain aspects to it as well, but it definitely appeals to the left brain amongst us, I think.
And it's really necessary as well because they work together, they are synergistic. But I believe if we fail to develop one, it's like you can't grow half a seed.
Yeah.
The other, it's like in a lot of educational establishments, some things have been taken off the agenda. Drama, outdoor play, cooking, messy play. You have to look at the brain and the being as needing to develop with synergy. So it's no bad thing to, play with your intuition and do things that help to develop, which you can do. You can practice developing intuition. Of course you can, in many ways, as people do in psychic training schools and all that kind of thing. And it's well documented. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know that the military use psychic perception and virtual seers and things.
Do they?
To help figure stuff out. Police use people with psychic ability. Yeah.
Wow.
In the Vietnam conflict, the Americans actually had a lot of people working for them who could do remote viewing because they couldn't figure out better ways of seeing what the Viet Cong were up to. Oh yeah, I actually said this to my former sister-in-law not 2 weeks ago because she's very like, my former sister-in-law is a little bit
buttoned up, or
and we were around a table together, and somebody asked me about my intuition because I'd had an intuitive moment when my son got married. This is what was going on,
right? And
the weird thing about intuition, and it's worth just telling you that, is you'll never get proved right. So you have to get over your ego. And I said to her, well, it's a bit like this, and she was sitting there like a bit like. And I said, for example, remote viewing, and police often use psychics. It's not that rare. And I said, you know that, don't you? And said her name, and she went, she was in the military a long time.
Wow.
I said, yeah.
Wow.
So, these things are not the mysteries they're held to be. I think it's to our detriment that we're kept from developing our own innate sense. It's just an innate sense.
Yeah, and it's really exciting, developing that innate sense, doing things like, just going through a week or a month of noting down all your dreams. I mean, that's fascinating. And then this whole Rick Rubin rabbit hole that I'm going down, I'm writing these new books at the moment and trusting intuition on design and writing style and creativity. It's fun. It's really fun.
There's a key.
Yeah.
It is fun. It's joyful. It's
Yeah.
what would I do if I didn't give a shit and nobody else could
Yeah.
criticize me? I'd do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, I mean, just in terms of dreams, do you encourage, is that something, obviously you've trained in NLP, you've trained in all these different disciplines, there's a bit of shamanism, there's a bit of energy work, there's a bit of quantum physics, there's a bit of NLP. Do you encourage dream work in your clients?
I encourage them to share their dreams with me.
Yeah.
There are some tribes, I think, certainly in the South Seas, who start their day with that ritual. Tell me what your dream was last night. And you're making a very deep engagement to someone because you're vulnerable when you're asleep. But very often when I do ask my clients to share their dreams, I'll share a perspective with them and we will clarify something that was maybe fuzzy or out of focus or I don't want to think about it. And it just goes bing, bing, bing. They're like, that's it.
Right.
That's
great.
a better choice.
Yeah. We need to wrap it up shortly, but that's actually given me some further investigation because at the moment my son he sleeps in the bed with one of us, so either me or Faith. And the first thing we always say in the morning is, "What did you dream of?"
Wonderful.
So it's great. It's great to know that tribes have done that in the past. That's amazing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share detail. I mean, you'll find it out yourself, but also encouraging him that his inner life is rich and important as much as how we so measure the outer life. We look for the symbols of outer growth and success. And sometimes a person can get so far along the path, but they're not validated for their inner life. And all of our life actually is an inner life that's being explored as external. So I love what you're doing.
Oh, good. Yeah. His inner life seems to involve a lot of helicopters.
Flying dreams.
I think he loves helicopters.
He's the pilot, or if he's seeing it.
I have in the past, but I sometimes think that because he's 3, I think partly he tells me what he just wants to talk about rather than what he's actually dreamt.
Yeah.
But then if I say who was driving the helicopter, it was always him. And who was in the helicopter? It was always me. So we'll see how those dreams develop as he gets older. I've loved talking about all that. What is one book that you'd recommend then, Debs, and one tip for living with more energy?
Oh, a book that I'd recommend. I think if I was talking to midlife women, I still think that Clarissa Pinkola Este's book, The Women Who Run with Wolves, is fabulous because it speaks to your subconscious as well as, fairy stories, but it opens up views for yourself. I like books that help you to self-reflect rather than tell you what to think. And it's beautiful. It's very beautiful. And what was the other question you asked?
What is one tip for living with more energy and vitality?
Rest when you need to. Look, it's not like go and have a lie down necessarily, but become aware of when you're getting tense, strung out, what your body's doing. And it might just be that you need to step outside, take your shoes off because you're an electromagnetic being, get your feet on the ground and have 5 deep, slow breaths. If you can pace your body and your system and regulate your system and get it into parasympathetic more often through the day, you'll have bags more energy, I swear.
Oh, lovely. I've really enjoyed this. So you're in Somerset now, aren't you?
Well, today I'm actually in Worcestershire.
All right.
I'm looking to live in Somerset, but I'm near beautiful Evesham and the Malvern Hills right now.
Oh, lovely. Oh, okay. Well, look, if you're ever in London, let me know and we'll have to do one of these in person, okay?
It'd be so cool. I'm sure we could dig a lot more out. And thank you for giving me the space and time, Tony.
Oh yeah, it's been brilliant. Just before you go, what's your website and where can people find you?
Of course, they can find me at debsdevries.com. So that name is DEBS, that's the Debs. DeVries is DE, V for Victor, RIES for sugar, debsdevries.com.
Good.
There's all the usual things to get hold of me there.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, next time we'll record a podcast and we'll meet up with our mutual friend John and we'll have a drink afterwards. It'll be great.
For sure. Hopefully before Christmas.
All right, Debs, it's great to talk to you on Zestology. Thank you.
And you. Lots of love, lots of energy, vitality, and keep going with Zestology. I love it.
Thank you. That is it for today's Zestology. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along. I hope you really enjoyed it and took some inspiration, maybe a bit of intuition out of my chat with Debs de Vries. My podcast partner today is Magnesium Breakthrough. If you'd like to dramatically improve the quality of your sleep and be bulletproof to stress. And actually, I've got a few questions for you, because if that is the case, if you're irritable or anxious, if you struggle with insomnia, if you experience muscle cramps, or if you're constipated sometimes, magnesium could be the one to go for. Now, this November, they do have a Black Friday special offer, and that is why I exclusively recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. You can go to bioptimizers.com/Zestology and enter the code Zestology10 to get your Magnesium Breakthrough. And I think later on this month, you might get 25% off. At the moment, you'll definitely get 10% off. Go to bioptimizers.com/Zestology, enter the code Zestology10 to get 25% off any order later this month, and I think 10% now. That's a Black Friday thing. I mean, they're an American company, and they're throwing everything at Black Friday, and they might be an American company, but you can get Bioptimizers products here in the UK and all over the world as well. They will ship anywhere. So Magnesium Breakthrough, I absolutely love it. I played paddle tennis today, as you probably heard in that podcast, and I need some magnesium. I felt really achy afterwards. I had to have a meditate before interviewing Debs. That is it for today's podcast. I know, I must be getting old. That is it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.